Hello there. Welcome to another interview for the Criterion 60th Anniversary Memories Project. Tonight, for the first time, Criterion Memories Nights, I'm interviewing Gennie Holmes. Hello, Gennie.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm all right, thanks. How are you? I'm
good. It's very lovely to see you. It's an absolute pleasure catching up with loads of people that I've not seen for ages.
Indeed.
So let's just jump straight in. When did you first get involved with the Criterion Theatre?
When I was 13, which was in 1980 something. And my mum was involved at the theatre, and one of her friends, Pam Smith, needed a 13-year-old girl called Gloria it was called Wait Until Dark was the play. I'd never done anything on stage. I'd never been involved in a school play or anything up until that point. But she managed to persuade me. And yeah, I just got involved and broke a couple of props in the process because I had no stagecraft. Threw things off the edge of the stage that were supposed to be thrown on stage. But I think Pam kind of just supported me through that process, and I really, really enjoyed it. I mean, at that point, the Criterion didn't have a youth theatre or anything like that, so the chance to be involved in productions was fairly minimal. So it depended if there was a young person's character or part that came up.
Because you'd been around the theatre, like socially, when you were younger.
Yeah, I mean, I can't remember exactly. I mean, but it was my mum and dad who got involved first. I think through Pam Smith, because my mum knew Pam through NCT, but that was NCT went from my sister, and then got dragged into doing stuff as people do at the Criterion. Oh yeah, come and help on what we need. We're just somebody to help out, and then you're there for the rest of your life. And then it just went from that, really. So Wait Until Dark was the first one, and then fortunately, I think later on, either that year or the next year, I can't remember, was the Roses of Eam, which was a huge cast, lots of different age groups, and I was able to play Dead on stage. That was great. I had obviously, if you know the play, it's about the plague that comes to a village in Eam, and they decide to close the village so it doesn't spread. Is it Derbyshire? I don't know. Anyway,
it is Derbyshire. We should probably get that back on next year, to be honest. After after the last 18 months we've had, yeah.
But it's great. I got to die or to be dead on stage, and I had all these blobs on my face, and I can't remember who played my mum, but she was weeping over my shoulder.
You were the first one dead, I think.
I was the first one to die. Other people died off stage, but I was the first one to be seen. And yeah. And
as we always say at this point, both Gennie and I have separately got the archive open in another window so that we can double check these things. And I can tell you that the picture of Gennie dead on set in the Roses of Eam is the first one on her page. If you want to go and play along at home,
I can see who's.
Some very serious faces around looking at.
I think Liz Thompson was my mum.
Yeah, it could have been. Yes, Mrs. Siddle.
Yeah. It's very sad.
Yeah, she's not well. It also says that you did props on Babes in the Wood as your first thing.
Yeah.
Because that was the first thing I was in as well. That's the first one on my archive as well. I was in the chorus.
I think Gloria was first, and because Babes in the Wood was obviously the Christmas of that year. So I think that might have been.
Well, there was a lot of props in Babes in the Wood. Maybe that was it came first because actually the preparation was months in the making.
That's very true. It was great fun. I loved being involved in that. I mean, as being involved in any panto is always great fun.
Yes.
And then Henry V, again, another big cast. Production, cast as the boy, probably the most feminine boy that they've ever been, because
I don't know, there's been a few.
Wasn't a particularly boyish shape. not even at that age. But that was good fun as well. And there's another picture of me looking sad, probably before the eve of war. And the great Phil Reynolds doing Henry V on that one. There was a brilliant, I think it was the final dress rehearsal, the final showdown with I think it's the Dauphin and Henry V, and they have a sword battle. You must have heard this story, but they have this sort of choreographed sword battle, and Henry knocks the sword out of the Dauphin's hand and it goes skidding across the stage. In the final dress rehearsal, it went up in the air, landed point down in the stage, like that. Very Braveheart, before Braveheart even happened. And obviously never ever happened again during the actual production, the run of the production. But we were always hoping.
No matter how hard you tried, yeah.
No matter how hard you tried, it was never ever going to happen again. But it was pretty cool to see.
Yeah, I think jumping
again
around,
dead by that point.
Jumping around the years a bit, I remember 12 Angry Men. There was a similar thing with the knife in the table. At the end of the first act, there was a knife that got stuck in the table. Sometimes it was just brilliant, and it did the sort of, and there was a sort of snap to a closing of the lights on the knife, and then it went out.
That was great.
But it worked really well most of the time, and then other times it kind of just like lilted to the side, and sort of the light sort of fizzled out. You can never plan those things.
No, well, that's the beauty of live theatre, though, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Different performance every night. That's why you should come see every single night of a play, because it'll always be different.
Yes.
Yeah, so we've probably gone off track, but yeah, that's how I started. Age of 13, dragged into it by a casting gap, really, for want of a teenage girl. And
can you remember, like, was it a social thing for you when you started? You went away for a while, didn't you? You worked for a while, and then
I went away to university. But I think always, and this is something that I was really aware of, even at the age of 13, was that I was always treated as an equal. I was never patronised. I was always part of the cast, always part of the team. And despite being obviously a lot younger, and there wasn't a youth theatre, so there weren't necessarily anybody else my age that was involved, I think I was always valued for my contribution to the team. Didn't matter that I was young, and I was never talked down to. Just there was an expectation that you do your work and you contribute and you're part of that team. And if you're part of that team, then you're treated as everybody else. And there was a social element to it. Obviously, I wasn't going down to the bar drinking at that age. But as I got older, it was really annoying, actually, because everybody at the theatre knew actually how old I was. Whereas I could go into town at the age of 16 and get away with being served and smoking and drinking, whereas everybody knew how old I was, so I couldn't really get away with it. I had to kind of actually wait until I was 18. But
there's no behind the bike sheds at the Criterion. It's sort of on display the entire time, and everybody knows you. So the lack of I was going to say the lack of youth theatre is something that I wanted to talk about, because you sort of fixed that. That was, as far as I remember, like, you were a very big driving force in getting some sort of youth theatre organised at various points in your career, including the drama classes.
Well, the kind of the youth theatre that I worked with kind of evolved from the drama classes, because the drama classes had been running, and when I came back from university, probably about 1996, when I graduated, I worked with children. I was a children's worker, so I was kind of roped in to do the Saturday morning classes. And then as the Saturday morning classes progressed, the top class was just getting too full, because basically there was nowhere else for those young people to go, and the younger ones were getting older and coming up, and they needed somewhere else to go. And Saturday was getting into Saturday afternoon, so we didn't want to put an additional class on there. So I can't even remember who came up with the idea, and it probably doesn't even matter. But we decided to set up a Sunday evening group for the older ones, and went from there, really. And we were allowed to put on a production. We did. I wish I could remember what it was. the Canterbury Tales.
Yes.
Basically completely stealing from the stuff that I'd done at school, because obviously once I'd done stuff at the theatre, my confidence grew and I felt I was able to get involved at school. So I did quite a lot of stuff at school from that. So yeah, we'd done Canterbury Tales at school, so I thought, right, it's obviously suitable for young people to do, although it's a little bit cheeky, a little bit rude. And yeah, it was great fun. And that was the first one kind of the youth theatre of them.
Yeah.
And it makes me feel really old now that all of those young people are kind of married. Some of them have children.
Yeah, I interviewed Becky Cribden the other week and said, I remember you because I taught you when you were in the very, very youngest of the drama classes, like probably 5 or 6 or something. I don't know when they started. And she was like, do you know, I've no recollection of you whatsoever, which was nice. It's good to make an impact on a young mind and have them.
Did she remember me?
I didn't ask her, but I think we can bring all of this back at the end. But there's definitely people I remember just going through, like, from the very youngest of the drama classes that are still there.
And to be honest, Becky Cribden was too young to be involved in that Canterbury Tales. She was still at the Saturday morning ones.
Right.
So we're talking sort of Dan Dara and that age. Matt Walton.
Yeah.
John Morton.
So I think late 90s, people like Ross Dara, it was Treasure Island.
Possibly, yeah. Ross. Jim. He played Jim Ladd. Is it Jim, the little boy?
Wait, somebody played Jim Ladd. Well, see, now this is why we have the archive.
No, Joe Fallowell was Jim.
Joe Fallowell, there we go. Yes.
Thank God for the archive. Otherwise, it could be really embarrassing.
Well, I mean, it's still pretty embarrassing, but at least other people can appreciate our mess of a brain at this point. The memories.
Ross Darrow was definitely. Oh, he was Oliver Twist.
He was Oliver Twist. Yeah, bit later.
Bit later.
But yeah, going back to you. So when you came back from university, you really threw yourself in, because your archive is then, I think, up to the 2000. It looks like you were pretty much involved in almost every production.
Yeah, I had nothing better to do. We had no children. We had sort of. I'm not going to say money, because we didn't really have money, but obviously met Matt doing Our Country's Good, which was before I went to university, but I don't remember him being in it, much to his dismay. But then came back and did Teachers, which is the first thing I did. He was involved in that. And so I think. So
for people who don't know, you're another of the Criterion couples that were sort of gestated in the bar at the Criterion or during productions. And now, where are we? 25 years later?
Well, we started going out officially in 1997.
Right. 24 years ago? 24 years ago, yeah.
24. Yep. 24 and a half.
Yeah.
Yes, God, that's a long time.
It really is.
Yeah. How have I put up with him that long?
That I don't know. But yeah, I mean, I remember that period, like all of us, the whole sort of, the gang of, like, we were sort of a group of people, all of similar ages. And in that late 90s, early 2000s, we were in or involved with pretty much everything, and in the bar every Wednesday, Friday and Sunday.
Yeah.
And probably meeting up when the bar wasn't open outside of the theatre in the meantime.
I used to drink so much alcohol and still go to work. But I think also at that time, there seemed to be quite a lot of big cast productions where you could get involved, and even if you went on stage, you were involved some other way. So I'm just thinking, so Christmas Carol, that had Every Man and His Dog. I'm surprised we had any audience for that. Same with Amadeus, Nicholas Nickleby. Again, how we managed to get people actually watching it when I'm sure there were more people on stage.
Yeah.
than actually the set allowed seating for, to be honest. That was amazing production. I really enjoyed that.
Nicholas
Just
Nickleby.
the whole, yeah. I mean, I would have hated to have been involved in the planning, the scheduling, the organisation, the management, the tech, or anything like that, because I wouldn't even know where you'd begin to start. But actually, as being part of the cast and part of the crew, it was just such good fun. And nobody had a chance to stop, though.
No.
And I think it was Mike Hammond who had about 15 quick changes within Act 2 or something ridiculous like that. He'd go off one stage, come round the other, and be in a different costume as a different person in a different part of the world. It was like,
and that one, you'd go off at the back of the stage, and then your next entrance would be in about 30 seconds at the front of the auditorium door.
Yeah.
So you had to actually go all the way around the back of the theatre and down the side of the alley, and then back in the front with a different hat on every time.
Different hat and a different shawl.
Yes.
That's how you differentiated between characters.
I mean, there's also, in those days, so this is kind of late 90s, early 2000s, there was Madness of King George, the Madness of George III.
Yeah.
Cause Célèbre, Treasure Island, really big cast play. Amadeus,
Yes.
very large casts. Are they all summer? I think they were pretty much all summer.
Oh, yeah, it was always in the summer when you had ridiculous layers of clothing on.
Yes.
Because they were all period pieces.
Yes, I remember somebody, I can't remember who said that's a classic Criterion trait, that they fail to, they do Terra Nova in July. So like it's the journey to the North Pole, or is it the South Pole? I can't remember. One of the poles. I'll edit it later in. But yeah, everyone's in huge sleds and husky furs, and let's do that in July when it's when you're just melting under the weight of it.
Yeah.
Although, to be honest, Nicholas Nickleby and probably George III, we couldn't have done outside the summer, because if it had been raining outside, we'd have had no room for people to get changed. Because for those, the scene dock and outside the back, we had tents up out the back for Nicholas Nickleby. I remember all sat around big tables waiting for the next act to pass, because no one was on for a while.
I mean, even for the Roses of Iam, I can remember there was like a shed that was furnished with prop sofas that once you died, basically you went and sat on the sofa it was called the green room. Like a mortuary,
like a mortuary green room.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Is that where you got your interview with Davina as you left, and then you were gone out the back? Fantastic.
It got fuller as the play went on, obviously.
Midsummer Night's Dream as well. That was another summer big cast.
Yeah. That was costumes. Great as well. Big costumes and big, absolutely loads of gunk in our hair, because I was a fairy, and the vision for the fairies, we were sort of like eco warriors and had great big boots and all sorts of stuff in our hair and tattoos. And no, I don't think I actually had a real nose ring in those days. I can't remember, might have, don't know. But yeah, that was fun. And Matt with his huge, great big tattoo that we had.
I was going to say, so for people who don't know, Matt was basically in a nappy, or sort of short trousers for the whole thing, and had a shaved head and henna tattoos just everywhere, all across his body.
They weren't even henna in the end, because I think I helped out with the wardrobe on that. And
I remember you painting tattoos onto Matt.
Yeah, me and I think Claire Sylvester, my mum and me having to go over them, and in the end, the only thing that he didn't sweat off, which sounds quite disgusting, was like Sharpie. So yeah, he kind of was coloured in with black Sharpie every night, and there was a huge, great big sort of like tree of life on his back that we were just like there colouring it in before we went on stage, and then it went up over the top of his head was the tattoo. There doesn't seem to be any photographs of that on the archive, which is a shame. If anybody's got photos.
Well, I was going to say, this is the point where we remind people that the archive is a sort of living, breathing thing and can only be improved by people's contributions. So if anybody has anything, pictures of backstage or clippings from newspapers or anything, do get in touch via there's a button on there that you can submit your own memories and submit kind of files with it, and we will add them and hopefully build a much more comprehensive. I mean, there's so much there already, but I'm sure that there's an awful lot that has been sort of lost. Some things just need to be forgotten, obviously, but
I mean,
give us the option.
Yeah, I mean, because we were in the foyer for when the audience came in with placards, and the whole kind of setup was that there
were New Age travellers, weren't there? There was
New Age travellers, and we were protesting, and then the kind of the real world people were planning to build a development, and we were protesting against it. Yeah. It was a shame that there's no picture evidence of it.
I'm sure there is somewhere.
There must be somewhere.
There's definitely some pictorial evidence, because I remember I left the theatre in about 2008, I think, 2007, 2008, and been gone a very long time. And when I got to be in a show like a couple of years ago, and when I got there, I sat down. I always used to sit in the same seat backstage. It was always like my seat. And there was a picture still stuck, a little Polaroid picture still stuck in the top of like where the lights are in the dressing room, of me in Midsummer Night's Dream. So there was definitely some pictures.
Which colour shirt were you?
I think I was yellow. I think it was very stylized. We had very nice colours. I think it was myself and Gareth Withers, and we both grew beards, Shakespeare beards, because it was Shakespeare, so he had to have a beard.
Because it was Shakespeare.
Neither of us had ever had beards before. And at the end, I think on the last night of the show, we both shaved off the beards and presented them to our leading ladies. I'm quite frightened that somewhere somebody's still got that somewhere. So please, if you're watching, don't do anything with that.
We don't want that as part of the archive.
No.
No.
But around about that time, you then started to direct quite a lot.
Yeah.
Was it starting with the youth group, or was it a bit earlier than that?
I think
was it my fault?
I did was
it was my fault.
Yeah, it was your fault.
It was my fault.
It was 12 Angry Men.
Yeah.
And I was supposed to be helping you, and then I think for some reason John Elves kind of couldn't do it.
I think he changed jobs.
To learn, probably. Yeah, he did change jobs.
This is the problem with, and I always hesitate to use the word amateur theatre, but the problem with non-professional in your spare time theatre is that life sometimes gets in the way. And 1200 Men, we invariably had 12, 9, 11 at various points of rehearsals. We had varying different numbers. But yeah, John had to leave, so I actually ended up being in it, and you ended up directing.
Yes. Yeah. But I mean, that was great. I mean, and that kind of set a precedent for the kind of plays that I enjoyed and like and still do would choose to direct, ones that are really character driven, where there's a really kind of basic set, and actually your time directing is spent building the character and working on the performance rather than blocking and trying to work out who's where and that kind of like the practical side of it. I'd much prefer kind of getting down to the nub of those characters, and that's really what 12 Angry Men was. It was, one room, 12 guys kind of arguing and talking, but their characters developing over the period of that time. And it was very similar to Dinner, which was again table theatre in the round. And actually, I don't think I've ever done, and please somebody let me know if I have, I don't think I've ever directed a play where I've just had stage entrances. And I think having that flexibility to be able to do that is also really important. So, and 12 Angry Men, that kind of, the way that the set was designed, and obviously I didn't have anything to do with that, but it was that claustrophobic, but also as if audience were part of the room where those discussions were going on. And that's really important in terms of taking the audience along with you. And I think it was that I felt the same kind of thing with dinner, that the audience needed to be in that, dining room with that horrendous, awful dinner party going on. Smaller table, fewer people, but same kind of effect, really. But yeah, 12 Angry Men was the first one that I kind of directed.
And then you did quite a few, and there's a couple of others that I'd see Brighton Beach Memoirs in there that I know. I'm pretty sure that was a similar thing. I think
it was.
I think Helen Withers was directing that, and
yes.
then she couldn't, and I took over and was directing it, and then we couldn't cast it. I ended up being in it, and then I remember phoning you up and saying, "Gennie, it's happened again. Can you come down?" And you were at the theatre about 15 minutes after that phone call, I think.
Yeah, probably.
I think you were. I think you took that rehearsal.
And I probably hadn't read the play. I don't think we were cast because we didn't get the young girl until I think probably 2.5 weeks before. And also I'd come straight from directing The Unexpected Man.
Right.
Which was the play before. So I'd only just finished directing that. And then I was in The Lady in the Van, which was the one after that. So that was quite busy.
Yeah,
it's a good job. It's a good job that Matt is also involved in the theatre as well.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, how does that work? So you've got children now.
Yeah.
And kind of it's a far cry from the old days where it was just like you only had to coerce one person into letting you do a show, and generally speaking, the other one was in it as well anyway.
Yeah. Or they were taking a break and they didn't mind, or used to come down after rehearsals and have a drink anyway. It is different and it is harder. But also, I don't know, I'm just tireder and older now as well. So I think even if I didn't have children, it wouldn't. I probably wouldn't be doing as much as that. But yeah, you do have to pick you have to be a bit more discerning, I think. And I think particularly with Matt working shifts, that makes it pretty much nigh on impossible. But stuff like this, so the Italian Straw Hat, obviously my children were in the house whilst I was doing the rehearsing and doing the performance. And the same with the play reading stuff. That's really good to be able to do that online. And when we did Queers as well, so that was last year, we did obviously within COVID restrictions, but we were able to do quite a lot of rehearsing as well because they're monologues, so they're just one-on-one. We did quite a lot of Zoom rehearsals. Obviously not a substitute for being on the stage at all, but it does facilitate it, being able to get around those kind of issues and difficulties around childcare as well as COVID.
And I've pushed it. I think it's fascinating for me because, like I said, we were sort of all the same age and around at the same time at that period of the theatre. And now you go, so I mean, there were people like my brother and Nicole, the Elveses, and for the last few years, I've come back for social occasions, and all of these children have popped up, and are kind of there's another generation coming through. I don't think any of them have broken through and sort of started being in stuff yet, but it can only be a matter of time. You would think, and I think you'd hope as well. I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, I'm not sure Harley would be into it, but I think Angel could be. I mean, Angel loves going to the theatre. She loves watching the theatre. We've taken to a couple of things in Stratford, and obviously she's been to see things at the Criterion as well. And she's mesmerised by it. Whereas Hartley's a little bit not taken in by the magic so much. But yeah, she's there.
But they're there for the social occasions. They've been there for.
They love the parties.
people who don't know, there's a Christmas carols night every year where Santa comes, and there's a new generation of children now getting presents from Santa.
Yeah, and shouting the songs.
Yes, shouting the carols.
Shouting the carols, yeah.
the Rudolph
Yeah.
song gets a very big pop every year.
And it's all nice. It's nice to have a kind of a family atmosphere there, because it's how the theatre sustains, isn't it? I mean, you obviously want to get people in as well. You don't just want to be reliant on growing your own, but it is nice to have that continuity, I think, and sense of history, as well as getting new people in, I think.
Yeah, there's a sort of sense of legacy.
Yeah.
And I think, as we've spoken to other people about, that I think that's what breeds the, I think, quite unique, I'm sure it's not unique, but a very specific professionalism at the Criterion, where everybody knows what standard that they're supposed to be living up to, and they really, really try hard to meet it. It's not like no one ever is just mucking about. And if they are, then they're found out pretty quickly and told that's not how this works.
Yeah, and they don't get asked back, or they just fade away into the distance. I think you're right with that. Yeah, I hadn't thought of it that way, but it's like a set pattern of behaviour, even down to things like we rehearse on a Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Sunday, and I'm sure that was set back probably with Jeff.
Oh, it was.
From the very beginning, and then you have a long Sunday, the Sunday before you go up, and then you've got dress rehearsals. I mean,
I've spoken to founder members, and they've said, in those days we did it like this, and it's like that's almost exactly the same as that's how it's still done, because that's the way that we were all taught that it worked.
Yeah, that's just how it was. And then you have notes at the end, and I can remember I did my first school play, and then at the end of the rehearsal, everybody just went, and it's like, well, where are the notes?
Yeah.
How do we know what we've done right, and how do we know how to put it right next time if nobody gives us any notes? And it's like, yeah, that's what notes are for, to improve the performance and progress towards the actual performance standard. So I couldn't believe that there were no notes.
Have you got any specific memories of particular productions or events, things that happened?
Oh,
okay. I mean, we should have just cracked on with this at the beginning, really. But yeah, go on then.
Yeah, I think
we can set them up.
Probably just too many to go through now, but I think one of my favourite things was it was quite early on in me and Matt's relationship, and we were rehearsing for the Shadowlands, the C.S. Lewis one, and I was playing a nurse and Matt was playing the doctor, and it was a very serious scene because obviously the lady's dying in the hospital bed, and it's it's very moving, very touching, and it was a Friday night rehearsal, and me and Matt decided to go to the pub straight from work, and we accidentally drank more than we should have, or the time passed quicker than we expected, and we ended up having to go straight from the pub to rehearsal, and we were terrible. We were like giggling in the wings. We were Matt literally tripped on stage. I was like, I think it's Christine Evans, and I was like stroking her hand, very concerned, tucking in her sheets, because it's like I had no idea what do nurses do. I don't know. Mess with the sheets and tuck it in, and then in notes, it was Keith Keir was directing it, and in notes he said, "Gennie and Matt, that was the best you've done that scene tonight." And me and Matt, we were holding it in for the whole of the rehearsal anyway, and that was it. It's like, well, that's basically carte blanche to just drink every night. We're much more professional than that. But the fact that he thought that was the best we'd done it, either we'd actually been completely and utterly terrible before then, or a couple of pints improves your performance.
I can't think I've ever done that. I think I remember going once to a rehearsal. I think it was once a Catholic, and I think I'd got my.
And you were in that.
I got my degree that day. I got my results, and I'd been at a friend of mine's drinking fairly steadily through the afternoon. From what I remember, sitting in a paddling pool in his garden, drinking beers in a nice summer's day. And then I had to go to rehearsal, and I got a taxi to the theatre. And on the way, I was just thinking, I'm not in a state to be doing this. This is so unprofessional. And I walked in, and the director was like, Jamie. And I was like, oh my God, is it that obvious? And she said, you're not needed tonight. You're not. And I was like, okay, see you then, bye. Got away with it. Got away with that. Never do that again.
Yeah, I mean, there's various things about, clothes falling off, clothes bits being forgotten. I think me and Matt being stranded on stage in When We Are Married, when we were married. Yeah. Because other people forgot their entrance and we'd finished our scene and we're waiting for other people to come on. And I think, again, I didn't panic because I was on stage with Matt, and it's almost like I felt confident that he would, and we just carried on talking until somebody came on stage. But I'm in those situations, I'm terrible at like making it up as you go along. Improvising, I'm terrible at improvising, and I just panic and freeze. But I think because I was on stage with Matt, I just felt much more relaxed, because I thought, if the worst comes to the worst, Matt will just sort it out and I'll just leave it to him. I mean, I remember when we did Teachers, Gareth is really good at the making it up as you go along and pulling it out like that. And there was one scene where there was three of us, and somebody started the wrong scene, like an Act 3 scene, and I was like, that's the wrong bit. I don't know what to do. And Gareth just like came in and made it all right. He said, no, it's not that bit. We'll go back. We'll do this bit. And it's like completely in character. And I was just like, oh, God, somebody else sorted it out. But yeah, I mean, there's loads of stories like that. Things go wrong all the time. Oh, yeah. Set falling down. That doesn't happen all the time. Glengarry Glen Ross.
Oh, my goodness, yes. Yeah. So it was the swing doors.
Swing doors.
Big swing doors. And we said, they've got to be really good. They've got to feel like heavy. They've got to feel like...
Ka-chunk, ka-chunk.
Yeah, those sort of flapping doors. Yeah. They'd be great. First night, was it?
First night.
And I seem to remember I'd been saying all week, I'm not happy about those doors. They don't see it. They'll be fine. And then I think it was Paul Field's first entrance. I think he comes in excited and he pushes the doors open, and he did. And both doors flew completely off their hinges and sort of went into the sides. And I remember I was sat, I think it was Tony Cutterford that did that, built that set, I think.
Possibly.
And it guaranteed me that those doors were fine. I was sat underneath, at the time the roof was being repaired, and we had that temporary thing at the back of the stage. There was like a pass that went right through the back.
Yes, yeah.
It couldn't be seen from the front. There was a false wall at the back. And I think Tony was also stage managing it, or he was there anyway. And he was sat next to me, and I was sat there. We were watching it on the camera on the little telly backstage, and I just looked at him, and he went.
I was in the audience,
and I think John Rusco walked over and picked up the door and propped it up against the side, and they just carried on.
Yeah, of course. Well, you got it.
No one would know.
Nobody would have noticed at all.
Which was the one with the poster? I think maybe it was Billy Liar. There was one play that I remember a poster hilariously slowly peeled itself off the wall, and it started and it just rolled down ever so slowly, and the whole audience. No one had a clue what was going on stage because the whole audience were absolutely transfixed by this very slowly falling down poster.
It wasn't.
There was almost a round of applause when it fell off at the end. I can't remember which show that was. Someone will remember that.
Was it Wasps? There was a lot of things on the wall in Wasps. No.
Yeah, it could have been. Could have been.
Yeah. Yeah. But, you know,
Everyone,
things like that happen.
Everyone loves things going wrong. And they push through, and it's never a big deal. Happens on the professional. It happens on the professional stage. On every level of live performance, there's.
I saw a National Theatre production of Othello, and there was a grand set piece at the end where Desdemona's bed kind of came down from the ceiling and it got stuck. And the stage manager had to come on and say, "Really sorry, we're just going to sort this out." Kind of at the, the bit just before Othello kills her. Yeah, that bit.
Oh, spoilers, Jenny. Some people won't have seen that yet. Some people are waiting to binge watch Othello later on in the. It's the pandemic. They're finally getting through all of their box sets
of Shakespeare. Yeah.
What would you like to see the theatre achieve in the next 10 years? So by the 70th anniversary.
By the 70th anniversary, goodness me. I think just to keep carrying on. I don't think that's probably not very inspiring, but I think maintaining the level of quality, the level of commitment, and that kind of company ethos of being part of a team and everybody working to the same standards. And also, I think really important, one of the things that the Criterion, I think, prides itself on is that actually everybody that is part of a production is part of the team. So it's you're part of a crew. So if you're performing, you're just as important as the people who are backstage, who are in the tech box, who are involved in the set build, all of that kind of thing. And I think and also you can swap between the two. I mean, there aren't many people who've only ever done one particular job. People get involved in all sorts of stuff, even if it's behind the bar, and doing props or selling tickets at the box office and doing some set painting. It's everybody chips in and contributes to the running of the theatre. I think that's really important, and that people who come and watch plays can feel inspired to get involved further, and if they want to.
I always love that. I always love watching somebody new come into the theatre, like not really knowing anybody and not knowing how it all worked. And then within about 3 months being completely indoctrinated into knowing exactly how everything works. Let's maybe not say a cult, but occult. No. But yeah, getting used to, this is how it worked. Like they don't quite know what it's going to be like when they come in, and then they're stuffing envelopes to do newsletters in the bar. We don't do that anymore, but that was in the old days, children. We used to send practical letters out to people in their homes.
Yeah,
before
the
we could email
and everything.
Yeah, we delivered a lot of them. I think we're still delivering season leaflets, I think, on occasion. Probably not over the last 18 months.
I think they do. Yeah. I think there's still hard copies of the season leaflet. But and also the social side of it, for that to still carry on. That it's not just, you don't just go down to the theatre to rehearse and then come home again. That there's actually you form friendship groups, and that lifelong friends, really.
Yeah.
And that continues to happen.
I mean, the cast at your wedding was a testament to that. When the Criterion moved for one performance only to St Mary's Guildhall.
Yeah, indeed. Still going. We might have a revival. You never know. We could redo our vows.
It's so lovely to talk to you, Jen. I will be coming back to you later for closure on some other anecdotes, I assume.
Okay.
Because I think our idea is that as we go through these interviews and people say things that are borderline litigious, we can then come back and find out the true story of. I'm sure Tony Cutterford will come on and tell me that I'm wrong about Glengarry Glen Ross.
About the doors.
Possibly not even him, but I'm definitely blaming it on him for that.
could look it up on the archive, but it's probably not worth it. It's just keep it as Tony Gifford.
I think it's nice to keep some of these things ethereal and up for debate.
Yeah, it's what we used to do before Wikipedia.
Exactly. It'll certainly keep us talking through the year.
Exactly.
It's been lovely to see you. Thanks so much for joining us. And hopefully see you soon.
Yeah, indeed. Bye.
Hey.